And here with us now from Philadelphia is Republican Governor of Minnesota, Tim Pawlenty. Governor, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. You're
happy to do
one
it,
of the
Andrea.
governors. Well, you're one of the governors who have at least, you don't have a balanced budget. It's not a constitutional requirement as I understand it, but it is a legal or a statutory requirement to be in balance. So you're facing the same problems that these other governors, 41 governors out of the 49 who were there today, are facing. What do you do and what did you hear today that's going to help you?
Well, in Minnesota, we do have a constitutional requirement for a balanced budget, as almost every other state does. I also think, by the way, Andrea, that our country would be well served if our federal government had that requirement. But first of all, we appreciate the meeting with President-elect Obama. He invited us here. It was a very gracious invitation. His tone and attitude during the meeting, I think, was summed up best by his closing comments, which were, "This isn't goodbye, it's hello," and he invited us to continue the dialogue. But there are a number of us who are concerned about the massive amount of federal spending that's going on, $7 trillion just since these bailouts have begun, and they're broke. You know, the federal government doesn't have any more money, so everything that anybody asks them for is money that our kids, our grandkids are going to have to pay back, and the debt is being purchased by the Chinese, sovereign wealth funds, and others, and so we should put a limit on the federal credit card.
Well, you're talking about that, but in terms of your own budget, was there a $1 billion deficit in February, $4 billion expected next year? What do you do in Minnesota?
Yeah, Andrea, we're going to announce on Thursday a much bigger budget deficit. We'll have a small one for the year that's fiscal year between now and next summer, but a much bigger deficit after that. So our revenues coming into state government are going to have to slow down, are slowing down, and so we're going to have to slow down our spending. But that's no different than what's taking place in families, small businesses, large businesses, and everybody else in this economy. And so governments aren't immune from the fact that the economy is shrinking, which means government's going to have to tighten its belt pretty severely as well. And Republicans and Democrats across the country, as governors, are doing that.
Does that mean cutting the most vulnerable people, like Medicaid payments, to the people who may now be forced into Medicaid because they've been laid off and because their unemployment and their other benefits have expired?
Well, that's going to be one of the pressure points for sure. I would say, though, that the Medicaid program was broken and unsustainable even before the economic collapse. If you looked at the rate of growth of that program, it's the thing that was going to be mathematically probably bankrupt or at least dramatically impair most states' budgets even without the economic collapse. And so if the federal government offers us a little money for that program but says you can't change the program, that really just delays or forestalls the real changes and reforms that have to be made in that program. But I think in most states, most governors are saying, you know, everything's going to have to be looked at.
Governor, I noticed that Governor Sanford, leading the Republican governors, has given a letter, an economic request or an economic letter to the President-elect at today's meetings. And one of the things you did call for is responsible federal spending, as you just alluded to set priorities and not rely on further borrowing. Yet there seems to be bipartisan consensus among economists and elected officials that there does need to be deficit spending right now because of the recession. Marty Feldstein and others formerly from the McCain-Palin team are recommending this as well. So where are you drawing the line? Are you against the kind of big stimulus packages that are being discussed?
Well, to put it in context, the federal deficit before the economic collapse and the bailouts was $10 trillion. That's $35,000 or so for every man, woman, and child in the country. The federal government now directly and indirectly has committed another $7 trillion. So that adds another $24,000 for every man, woman, and child in the country to the debt. That almost doubles the national deficit, and they've done it in 3 months. So I'm in the camp, Andrea, of saying first things first, which is, can we even sustain these commitments? And again, most of them being purchased by Chinese sovereign wealth funds or other investors, and the federal government is broke. They have no money. All of this money is monopoly money, and it's going to have to be paid back or otherwise be, burdened by, or the burden of it's going to be visited upon our kids and our grandkids. So I'm in the camp of saying address that first, and we, yes, exactly, or devalue the dollar.